The video begins with the deafening roar of helicopter blades cutting through the sky. A shaky camera captures a tense moment inside the presidential helicopter. Donald Trump sits rigid, his face red with frustration, his hands slicing the air in angry gestures. Across from him, Melania Trump stares at the floor, lips pressed tightly together, her shoulders stiff, as if each word hurled at her is another invisible weight pressing down. This is no glamorous photo op, no staged appearance for cameras. This is raw, unfiltered conflict. The kind of footage no press secretary can polish, no campaign manager can spin. For years, Americans have speculated about the true state of the Trump marriage. Whispers of distance, rumors of icy silences, carefully concealed by designer gowns and calculated smiles. But now, in just a few haunting seconds, the world is granted a glimpse behind the curtain. Trump's voice rises above the thundering blades. His hands jab toward Melania, his posture domineering, his presence suffocating. She doesn't speak, she doesn't argue, she doesn't even look at him. Instead, she averts her gaze, her face pale and frozen, the kind of silence that screams louder than words. For every woman who has endured the crushing weight of a partner's temper, this image resonates like a mirror. Social media explodes. The clip spreads from Twitter to TikTok to cable news in a matter of hours. Hashtags trend worldwide. #Melania, silent, #Trump abuse, #helicopter video. Millions replay the footage, frame by frame, dissecting every gesture, every glance, every strained second of silence. Commentators argue, is this just another marital spat, the kind every couple has behind closed doors? Or is it evidence of something far darker, a pattern of control, of domination, of emotional abuse carried out by a man who once held the most powerful office in the world? And then comes the reaction that no one expected. Jasmine Crockett, fiery Congresswoman, relentless critic of Trump's politics and unapologetic voice for justice, steps forward. In a press conference packed with cameras, she makes it clear. She will not allow this moment to be brushed aside as gossip. She frames it for what she believes it is, proof that even women at the highest levels of power can be reduced to silence under the shadow of a domineering man. Crockett's voice cuts through the noise. What America saw was not a family disagreement. What America saw was the reality too many women live with every single day. Silence in the face of intimidation, fear in the face of power. Melania Trump deserves dignity. She deserves respect. And if Donald Trump cannot give her that, then the nation must ask what kind of man he truly is, not as a politician, but as a husband. With those words, the scandal shifts. It is no longer just a viral clip. It becomes a national conversation. On talk shows and newspaper columns, across kitchen tables, Americans debate not only Trump's marriage but the image of masculinity, of control, of the unchecked power men wield, even over the women closest to them. And in that storm, Jasmine Crockett positions herself not as a gossiping spectator, but as a defender of every woman who has ever been told to keep quiet. She transforms a viral moment into a political weapon, and in doing so, she declares open war on Donald Trump in a way that is more personal, more intimate, and more dangerous than ever before. The fallout from the helicopter video is immediate, relentless, and explosive. News networks play the clip on a constant loop, analyzing every frame like a crime scene. One outlet slows the footage down, freezing on Melania's downcast eyes. Another zooms in on Donald Trump's clenched jaw, the fury radiating from his face. Experts are invited onto panels. Psychologists, marriage counselors, even former White House staffers, all speculating about what this short, grainy video really reveals. But outside the sterile glow of studio lights, the public reaction is visceral. Women across the country share their own stories online, attaching the hashtag #SilentMelania to personal accounts of intimidation and emotional abuse. A movement begins to stir. For many, Melania is no longer the distant First Lady, the woman in designer heels walking across the White House lawn. She becomes a symbol, a mirror of their own private battles. The silence on her lips is the silence they've known in their homes, in their relationships, in moments they were too afraid to speak. Donald Trump, as always, fights back. On Truth Social, his words appear in capital letters. Fake news, disgraceful, Melania loves me, total witch hunt. His loyal supporters echo the sentiment, calling the video manipulated, taken out of context, another attempt to smear a man who has faced endless attacks. Right-wing media pundits flood the airwaves, mocking the outrage, painting Crockett as a grandstanding opportunist desperate to stay relevant. But Jasmine Crockett doesn't flinch. She steps deeper into the fire. At a town hall in Texas, her voice shakes, not from fear, but from conviction. Standing before a crowd, she points directly at the projected image of the helicopter scene behind her. This is not about politics. This is not about Democrats or Republicans. This is about a woman trapped in silence under the shadow of a man who has built his entire career on domination. And if this nation cannot recognize abuse when it's staring us in the face, then what chance do ordinary women have? The room erupts in applause. Her words cut through the partisan divide, resonating not just with her base, but with independents, with moderates, with anyone who has ever felt powerless. For the first time, Trump's critics sense they have found a new battleground, one that strikes at the heart of his carefully crafted image as a strong man. The pressure mounts on Melania. Paparazzi swarm her every move. Cameras capture her avoiding Donald's hand during a public appearance, fueling speculation. Tabloids plaster her face with headlines like "Prisoner in High Heels" and "Melania's Cry for Help." Yet she remains silent, neither confirming nor denying the narrative building around her, and that silence only deepens the storm. Meanwhile, Crockett seizes the moment. She frames the issue not just as Melania's personal struggle, but as a national reckoning. If the First Lady cannot speak freely, she declares, then no woman in this country is safe from silence. Trump's camp is furious. Anonymous aides leak to reporters that he is enraged by the coverage, calling it a betrayal, a humiliation. He orders his team to hit back harder, to discredit Crockett, to paint her as an extremist, exploiting a private family matter. But the more they attack, the more attention they give her, and the more she grows into the role of champion, not just for Melania, but for every woman who has ever been dismissed, doubted, or demeaned. The stage is set. What began as a shaky clip from a helicopter is now a cultural flashpoint. Jasmine Crockett has turned a private quarrel into a national conversation, and Donald Trump, for once, finds himself on defense, forced to answer not as a politician, but as a husband accused of cruelty. The storm grows darker. Donald Trump does what he has always done best. He goes on the offensive. At a rally in Florida, beneath glaring lights and the roar of his loyal supporters, he sneers into the microphone, his voice dripping with contempt. These people, these Democrats, they'll stoop to anything. They're dragging my beautiful wife into their lies. They're using Melania, my Melania, to smear me. Jasmine Crockett, she's nothing but a phony, a disgrace, and we're not going to let her get away with it. The crowd erupts in chants. Trump, Trump, Trump. But beneath the surface, the cracks are visible. Even some conservatives whisper uneasily about the helicopter video. They cannot deny what their own eyes saw. And the more Trump lashes out, the more the footage replays across America's screens, each outburst reinforcing the very narrative he's desperate to bury. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett doubles down. She takes her message from town halls to primetime interviews, her passion unwavering. On national television, she looks straight into the camera, her voice steady but fierce. Donald Trump wants you to believe this is about politics. It's not. It's about power and how he wields it against the people closest to him. We saw a woman silenced in real time. We saw fear in her eyes, and no spin, no rally, no slogan can erase what the world witnessed. Clips of her speech go viral, shared alongside the original helicopter video. Now, the story is no longer about a strained marriage. It is about abuse, about silence, about the millions of women who see themselves in Melania's eyes. Crockett frames herself not just as a politician, but as a voice for every woman who has ever been dismissed. The media frenzy becomes suffocating. Morning shows dissect the scandal. Late-night comedians crack biting jokes about Trump's helicopter tantrum. Activists organize marches under banners reading, "We are all Melania." And for the first time, the First Lady's silence is interpreted not as indifference, but as quiet resistance. Trump's inner circle grows desperate. Advisors leak to the press that he is furious behind closed doors, shouting at staff, demanding to know why his narrative is slipping away. Some warn him to back off, to stop feeding the story. But Trump cannot resist. Every insult he hurls at Crockett only makes her stronger, turning her into a symbol of defiance. And then comes the most shocking twist yet. A former White House aide, speaking anonymously, confirms what many had suspected. This isn't new. Melania has been under this kind of pressure for years. What you saw in that helicopter, that's nothing compared to what happens behind closed doors. The revelation spreads like wildfire, igniting the scandal further. For Jasmine Crockett, this is the moment she seizes with both hands. At a fiery press conference, she declares, "Donald Trump calls this fake. He calls it a witch hunt. But when witnesses step forward, when insiders confirm the abuse, the question isn't whether it happened, it's whether America is brave enough to face it. If a First Lady can be treated this way, imagine what happens to women with no spotlight, no protection, no voice. That is why we cannot stay silent." The stakes are higher than ever. What began as a viral video has spiraled into a national reckoning, a collision between Trump's carefully crafted image of dominance and Crockett's rising voice of resistance. The battle lines are drawn. Trump, the embattled strongman, versus Crockett, the relentless defender of women's dignity. And America is watching, divided, enraged, and unable to look away. The battle reaches its peak. America is no longer just watching a scandal, it is living inside one. The helicopter video has become a cultural touchstone, a prism through which millions debate the meaning of power, silence, and abuse. On talk shows, in living rooms, on college campuses, the question hangs heavy. If Melania Trump, the First Lady of the United States, could not speak freely, then who in this country truly can? Donald Trump, true to form, refuses to retreat. At a massive rally in Ohio, he storms across the stage, waving his arms, shouting into the microphone, "This is the biggest hoax yet. They're using my wife, my family to attack me. Jasmine Crockett, she's a fraud. She doesn't care about Melania. She only cares about herself." His supporters cheer, their fists pumping in the air. But the footage tells a different story. Every time the helicopter clip plays on the giant screens of the internet, Trump's denials sound emptier, more desperate. Jasmine Crockett seizes the contrast. In a nationally televised address, she looks into the camera, her voice calm but sharp as steel. "This is not about me. This is about what we all saw with our own eyes. A woman silenced, a man raging, a marriage stripped bare of dignity. Donald Trump wants you to believe it was nothing. But I ask you, when has silence ever meant nothing? Silence is a message, and Melania's silence speaks louder than all of Trump's shouting." Her words cut through the noise like a blade. The country leans in, listening. Activists rally around her message. Women's organizations issue statements of support. Even some Republicans, quietly and cautiously, admit the footage is troubling. Crockett has managed what few thought possible. She has made Donald Trump look weak, not in policy, not in politics, but in the most personal arena of all, his own marriage. The final twist comes when an unverified but explosive second clip surfaces. Grainy audio, allegedly from inside Trump Tower, where Donald's voice can be heard berating Melania during a private argument. Authentic or not, it spreads like wildfire, fanning the flames of outrage. Trump calls it a deepfake. His allies echo the denial, but the damage is done. The narrative of cruelty, of domination, has taken hold, and no amount of shouting can erase it. Jasmine Crockett seizes the moment with one final declaration, delivered before a roaring crowd. Donald Trump tells us he will make America great. But how can a man who cannot respect his own wife respect a nation of 330 million people? How can a leader who silences the woman closest to him ever hear the voices of the women of this country? The truth is simple. If Melania Trump cannot be free, then none of us are truly free. And that is why we must stand, speak, and fight back, together. The crowd erupts in thunderous applause, the chant echoing, "Stand, speak, fight!" Crockett raises her fist, her voice the embodiment of defiance. The scandal is no longer about Melania alone, no longer about a marriage. It has become a rallying cry for a movement, a demand for dignity, equality, and the right to be heard. And as the cameras broadcast her words across the nation, one thing becomes clear. Donald Trump has been wounded, not by an opponent's policy, but by a woman's silence and another woman's courage to call it what it is. The battle lines are redrawn. The question now is not whether America believes the video, but whether America is ready to believe the women who refuse to stay silent. The story that began in the roar of helicopter blades has ended in the roar of a nation awakening, and Jasmine Crockett, once dismissed as just another politician, has risen as a symbol of resistance, fearless, unyielding, and ready to take on the man who has built his empire on intimidation. The reckoning has begun.